Assimilation is a concept that brings to mind many thoughts, some positive, some negative. Mostly negative, but that's just my opinion. When Christopher Columbus arrived in the New World, he and his men were shocked to find that the inhabitants of this new world were not wearing anything except for themselves. Let's not even get into what the African colonizers found when they got to Africa, because that's a messy story for another day. As cultural immigrants themselves, their first impulse was to start imposing their way of doing things on their newly discovered countrymen. By the time European imperialism came to a close several centuries later, the world was beginning to see something new: modern Western culture. Although the spread of Western culture is most closely associated with Europe and its descendants such as the United States, Japan, Australia, and Canada, cultural assimilation has occurred around the world as traditional cultures have been overwhelmed by Western societal values. Hello everybody, and how are you guys doing today? Welcome to all my first timers and welcome back to my returning humans and mythics. I am Jasmine and welcome to Informia. This is an enchanted forest that I am going to help share the wonders of knowledge and information. So please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button and share this video, please. And please be free to comment down below anything that you would like for me to discuss. So this has been an interesting topic that has been in the works for me, but I did not really know how to verbalize it properly without sounding like an uneducated swine. No offense to swinekind. Honestly speaking, I did not understand the difference between assimilation, appropriation, and appreciation. And I know there are a lot of people out there who also don't understand. But don't you sweat, boo-boo, because I did all the mental gymnastics for the both of us when it comes to the research department. This all came about when I was watching a YouTube video by Kidology. Please do go support her channel because she's an amazing creator. I will link her channel in the description below. When a clip of the reel where Lonnie was trying to explain the difference, and it really caught my eye, my curiosity, and my attention too.
Say this is an afro or an afno.
I'm offended that they're saying this is an afro. That's not an afro. Let's start there.
Yeah.
You think that's an afro? That look like
Teased
Marie
hair?
Antoinette to me.
And you're right
about
like a Gibson girl.
Yeah, it
like
just
the
looks
Gibson
like-
hairstyle back in the day.
I look at it more as a teased bouffant. If you
Yeah,
look at the
that's
style of her clothing, it looks more Victorian. It looks like
The
it's
texture
inspired
of the
from
hair
that.
is not.
Yes.
But then the other picture, it kind of looks like she's trying to go for an Afro style.
Which one?
That one.
that
one
looks a little bit more like an afro.
Yeah,
See,
like it's
okay.
yeah. So I think maybe that's what people were kind of.
Does that image bother you, Lonnie?
What?
Look, it's a difference between assimilation and appropriation. We done talked about this before.
Okay.
Black women, a lot of us have had to assimilate in order to get jobs. I know that because as an engineer, when I tried to come in there with some dreads, they would not hire me. Then I had to wear my hair straight and I got me a job. That's a big difference than when you appropriate, because a lot of people appropriate and they're taking someone else's culture. I just want everybody to understand
to define
the difference. And so some people are still sensitive about it. The thing is that for a lot of black women, we feel like what we said, if you are looking for the Afro look, then hire an African American or somebody that has African culture, and nothing's wrong with that.
There are white women who actually grow that kind of hair out of their head too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just putting that out.
Okay, so
I don't understand what the attitude is, but I mean, the point is that we have in this country issues with people taking other people's culture and making money off of it. Sure. And that's really, and she has been known to do that. I think it's not so much more about the Afro. I think it's more about her.
A Kardashian or Jenner?
Yeah, Kendall, has been known, because she's been kind of tone deaf on some things. Let's not forget about the Pepsi commercial,
that
and
was
stuff
terrible.
like that.
That was terrible.
And then there's been some things with her fashion line. So I think it's more about her and not necessarily about...
Yeah, tons of white models have done this before.
Exactly. So I think it's more about her.
Google defines cultural assimilation as the process in which a minority group or culture comes to resemble a society's majority group or assume their values, behaviors, and the beliefs of the other group were fully or partially. Before we go anywhere, we have to understand the history behind cultural assimilation and how it presents itself in society. The most common and oldest occurrence that I can recall from Google comes from racial prejudice, white supremacy complexes, and colonization. There are two that I presume to be well-known types of cultural assimilation that have and in some way still play a big role in today's modern society. An involuntary process of cultural assimilation of religious or ethnic minority groups during which they are forced to adapt the language, identity, norms, mores, customs, traditions, values, and mentality of established and generally larger communities belonging to the dominant culture by the government, as defined by an article written in the Google Arts and Culture Archive. Here are some examples of forced cultural assimilation just so we can get a clearer picture of what it is. Number 1. The forced assimilation of the indigenous people in European colony empires of the 18th, 19th, and 20th century in the Americas, Africa, Asia, and the indigenous people of Oceania. 2. The Zulu people were forced to give up their language, dress, and custom as a result of colonization. They were forced to perform Christian rituals that they did not believe in. The first king of the Zulu people was Mutunzi Makapande, who died in 1835. He was succeeded by Kumalo Makapande, who ruled the country until 1893. During his reign, the government tried to impose Christianity on the people through laws such as the Indian Commission Act of 1894 and the Native Laws Amendment Act of 1879, which made it illegal for Africans to marry whites. His successor, Kashayo Makapande, had even more trouble with his subjects. After he refused to sign an agreement for him to become an English citizen, he was imprisoned for several months in 1898 before being exiled from South Africa altogether in the 1900s after refusing orders from Parliament which forbade him from leaving England. 3. The Bantu Education Act of 1953, which imposed a curriculum that was designed to teach African children that they were inferior to white people. It was a law passed in South Africa that segregated education based on race. The law was designed to educate Black South Africans in the way that would make them better workers, but not provide them with an education that would enable them to challenge white supremacy. The law was repealed in 1976, but its legacy is still felt today. A lot of people think that cultural assimilation is the same thing as cultural diversity, but they couldn't be further from the truth. Cultural assimilation is when a person or group is actively trying to adapt their culture to fit into another. For example, if you are from Italy and you moved to America, you will have to learn to speak English and adapt your food habits. But it won't be because you're trying to fit in with an entirely different culture. You'll be assimilating into the American culture, not learning about another. Cultural diversity, on the other hand, means that there are a multitude of cultural groups in a society or region who have different beliefs and practices. You might have an Italian family who immigrated from Italy and then have kids who were born there, thus identifying as American. The children of these two families would be part of a culturally diverse group, one that has Italian heritage but also belongs to an American society as well. It is important to understand these differences because they can affect how we treat each other as individuals and as groups. If we say something offensive about someone's culture, but mean well by doing so, like referring to someone's food preferences, for example. Before I dive too deep into this, I will talk about this more in the follow-up videos on appropriation and appreciation, so please stay tuned. As I was doing my research, I was not able to find a standardized definition for voluntary cultural assimilation, or maybe I just wasn't digging deep enough, but I was able to find two concept ideas that academics and sociologists alike can agree upon. This can be defined as the willingness of an individual to adapt to the culture or way of life practiced in his, her, or their new profound environment, as described by an article in the Eugenics archives written by Catherine Stoll, which I recommend you go read because it does an amazing job diving deeper into the entire topic. I will link it in the description down below, and if you want me to do like a brief video on the dark history of eugenics and how it kind of affected South Africa in general, please comment down below and I will get right to it. Examples of voluntary cultural assimilation are those situations where people choose to voluntarily assimilate into their new environment, usually out of a sense of belonging and acceptance. This can entail things like learning a new language or cultural practices, or simply adopting the values and social norms of one's new surroundings. There are a number of reasons why people might choose to do this. Perhaps they want to fit in with the local community, or they're looking for a change in lifestyle that will benefit them and their family. With positive voluntary cultural assimilation, people are able to integrate themselves into a new culture and still maintain their individual identities. In many cases, especially when people are moving away from home for the first time or for extended periods of time, there is an initial period of resistance where people must adapt to the new environment and culture on their own. They feel lonely or homesick, or they may have difficulty adjusting to the way things work in this new home country or environment. E.g., perhaps they do not know how to use the public transport system or where food stores are located in general. Some may even feel like they are being judged by their neighbors or coworkers because they don't look familiar. However, with some time, some patience on the part of everybody involved, these difficulties can be overcome and cultural assimilation can occur successfully. This can be defined as voluntary assimilation of a minority group, usually affected under pressure from dominant groups. These pressures can include prejudice, stigma, biases, and so forth. Negative voluntary cultural assimilation is a term used to describe instances of groups adopting the culture of a dominant group without necessarily being motivated by true integration. It has been observed in several contexts around the world, such as in South Africa. While negative voluntary cultural assimilation might not be seen as an undesirable outcome, it is generally regarded as undesirable because it results in individuals losing their sense of identity or culture. Those who engage in negative voluntary cultural assimilation may start to adopt the culture and values of the dominant group for superficial reasons such as personal acceptance or peer pressure. Negative voluntary cultural assimilation can also result in people adopting the language, beliefs, behaviors of the dominant group without understanding these aspects deeply. This can lead to miscommunications between the two groups, which can result in tension and conflict. Cultural assimilation poses a challenge for society because people are encouraged to integrate into one community when they are actually changing their own identities and culture. Negative voluntary cultural assimilation is one way that people are able to assimilate without truly integrating themselves into another community. By taking on the norms and the values of a dominant group, people are able to gain acceptance within that community while maintaining their own. Take, for example, the Crown Act, which is a Californian law that prohibits discrimination based on hairstyle and hair texture by extending protection under the FEHA and the California Education Code. Thank you for bearing with me in today's video. I know there was a lot to talk about and a lot to compartmentalize, but I hope that you have a clear idea of what the different types of cultural assimilation are and how it affects society as a whole and as in the individuals within that specific society. In next week's video, we are going to be discussing cultural appropriation so that we can have a better understanding of the nuances that exist in today's modern landscape and how we ourselves can identify these nuances, especially when it comes to the conflicted debates between the shades of assimilation, appropriation, and appreciation. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope that you learned a lot. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and please be sure to hit that like button and comment down below what more you guys would like to hear me discuss.